the sin in the world. How to view our own sin, how to view other people outside of the church and the way that they sin. I mean, we get so bogged down with issues. And this, I think, gets us back to the heart of the issue. So instead of addressing the symptoms, and instead of addressing problems that we see that really aren't going to fix anything, let's get back to the heart of the problem. And that's what Paul's going to be addressing here in Romans. He says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew and then to the Gentile. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. It says the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and the wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power, His divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God nor gave thanks to Him, but their thinking became futile. Their foolish hearts were darkened, and although they claimed to be wise, they became fools. And they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being, or birds, and animals, and reptiles. We're going to build on that. But the wrath of God is being revealed against all the wickedness of people who suppress the truth, since God has revealed Himself to them. We look at the wrath of God and say, is it really fair, is it really right that God would send people to hell? And the answer is yes. A holy and just God revealed to us everything that we need to know that there is a God. And then He gave a special revelation to teach one another what it is we need to know and how to respond to Him. And if you're not going to take advantage of that, if you're going to say, all right, God, I don't want you, then God cannot, He's not going to make you go against your own desire. C.S. Lewis had said, how do you say it now? There's two ways this works out. Either we say to God, your will be done. We allow Christ to be the for our sins and get into heaven. Or indeed, God says to us, your will be done. You don't want me? Okay. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to make you. I respect you too much. And our will gets done. But God has revealed Himself. So people are without excuse. So how has God revealed Himself? I want to look at a few things this morning. This isn't going to get quite as deep. If you really want to know some of this good stuff, we just finished a series on Wednesday night. Ken Ham from the Creation Museum talked about all the evidences and how it points back. And I'm not going to go through all that again, but I'll give you a few things. God reveals Himself in creation. God does reveal Himself in things that we see out there. God has made His existence plain to people by the things that we can visually see and touch. Through observing the universe, scientists and astronomers have seen that there is some kind of expansion going on, that the universe is constantly expanding. And when they work backwards from that expansion and say, okay, it's all going this way, so if we take back this way, where do we go? Where was the beginning? And it all goes back to a point, a beginning. A place and a time where everything started. And they'll say that was the Big Bang. That at that point, everything started from this one little place that took off. The problem for those who do not want to acknowledge God is, what was it that put everything in motion? What was it that caused that Big Bang, if you will? On the website howstuffworks.com, which supports evolution, it says this about how life began. Speaking in general terms, life can only come from one of two places. Spontaneous creation, which is random chemical processes creating the first living cell. Or supernatural creation, where God or some other supernatural power created the first living cell. Now they wanted to say that it was this spontaneous creation that started it all. But you tell me, which is a greater leap of faith? Random chemicals started for no reason a process that became living cells, or a creator who created all that? And where did the chemicals come from? If there was a chemical reaction somewhere, those chemicals came from somewhere, right? And what made them move to create this process? What made them start that spontaneous creation? What was that trigger that set everything off? Spontaneous creation. And they call that science. It amazes me how those who do not believe in God say they do so because they don't want to believe in anything that they can't test or see with their own eyes. And then these same people who only want to believe the things that they can test and see with their eyes believe in something called dark matter or dark energy in our universe. They believe this because, given the current theories of how our universe functions and reacts, they say that there should be more matter in the universe than there is. There should be more energy in the universe than there is. There's something out there that we can't see, and so we're going to call that dark matter or dark energy. And we can't see it, and we can't test it in the lab. We can't see it with any kind of telescope. It doesn't emit or absorb light or any radiation. But it's out there. By faith, we believe it's out there. And they give us matter and energy properties that will help explain the things they find in their observations. But again, they can't test it or observe it or confirm its existence. So why is it that people have faith to believe in a dark matter or a dark energy out there that we can't see or explain or test, but they won't believe in an eternal God? See, a worldview that holds a belief in God would say that God is the creator of all things. A worldview that wants to discount God will say that random forces spontaneously occurred, creating time and space and everything we see. But we don't know what that was. Both views require faith, because neither can be tested in the lab. So are you going to put your faith in something we made up? Or are you going to put your faith in maybe there's a God out there who created? We watched a video with the Rock Youth Group a few years back, and they interviewed some of the big scientists at places like Cal Berkeley and places, and they asked them, all right, where did the universe come from? And they went back and talked about the intelligent design and all this thing. And the professor at Berkeley, to explain all this, said, well, I don't believe there's a God out there. All right, then how did it all begin? Well, I think it was probably an alien in another universe that created this universe. Because there can't be a God, but there can be an almighty alien. When we go back to the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis 1, we read about a beginning that God started all things. And we also see that God was active in designing. He didn't just create, he designed. He made something useful. He made something beautiful. He made something functional. We see that after God created the heavens and the earth, it was formless and empty. He created, but it was just a big blob. And then he created light and separated light from darkness. And he separated the waters into water and an atmosphere. He gathered the dry land together in the midst of the waters. He created vegetation. He put the sun and stars in their place, and the moon. He designed animal life. He designed man in his own image. And when it was done, God saw that it was good. That's what the Bible tells us in Genesis 1, that God created, that God designed. These were not random events. These were an intelligent designer, a God who created and designed and formed for a purpose. When we look around at the world, we see complexity, we see design. In fact, scientists have looked at all that is required for complex life forms to exist and have determined that all that the earth possesses, all things that are here, everything that's actually needed for life to exist on this planet is extremely rare in the universe. And not just rare, highly improbable in the combination that we have it. For instance, our solar system has to be in a very narrow zone in the galaxy between spiral arms, not too close to the center and not too far from it, but in the exact place between spiral arms. And the parent star must be larger than the average and very steady in the output of energy. And within our solar system, there has to be a large planet, say Jupiter, with a nearly circular orbit that will vacuum up all the meteorites and asteroids that come through. If it were an elliptical orbit, it would disrupt the smaller planets like Earth and make life impossible. The Earth has to have a large moon, or else the planet's axis would wobble and its climate would be unstable and unsuitable for life. It has to be a narrow distance from the parent star where water can be in liquid form. There's just a few of the numerous fine details that have been searched for in space. Trying to find another planet that might match, we just can't find the combination that we have here. Those details must all exist. All of them. Simultaneously. You can't say, well, there's water on this planet, so maybe. No, what about all the other stuff? It has to have all of this stuff with very little room for adjustment in order for life to be present. Random? I think this evidence indicates a design. And that doesn't even take into account the design elements in the life itself that exists. When we stop and consider the laws of the universe, or the mathematical design built into so many things within the universe, or even the design of human life, the intricacies of our life system, the respiratory system, the reproductive system, even the eye and all the details in your eye and the way that it works with the brain so you can see things. It seems apparent that the intricate and unique design elements indicate not just random occurrences, but design. So for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power, and His divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Now, we may not know the whole story of who God is and how God interacted with mankind, how He sent His Son Jesus, but everybody understands a God. Psalm 19 tells us that the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of His hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. I mean, they have no speech, they use no words, no sound is heard from them, yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the earth. In the heavens God has pitched a tent for the sun. It's like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other, and nothing is deprived of its warmth. God has revealed Himself in creation. But not only that, God has revealed Himself in our consciences. Not just the things we can see out there, but even in our own minds, in our own hearts. Romans 2:14, which we'll get to in a couple of weeks, says, "Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature the things required by the law, then they're a law for themselves." Even though they don't have the law, they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts. Their consciences are bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accuse them, and other times defend them. Even people who don't know the God that we talk about in the Bible, even people who don't understand the story of salvation, understand there's a God out there, and their consciences convict them. They know right and wrong. There are certain things that God has written upon everyone's heart. And these can be perverted and distorted, and we see them maybe in different ways in different places around the world, but they're there. In every single culture. No matter where you go, you're going to find that killing someone for no reason is frowned upon. And there are going to be consequences for that. Even in some of the real native, I guess, cultures of cannibalism, there is a morality that says it's okay for me to eat visitors, but I can't eat people from my own tribe. They understand there's a right and a wrong way to do this. That's because there are certain things that are considered universally wrong. In the same way, lying without a good reason is considered wrong in pretty much every culture. Stealing, taking somebody else's property, is frowned on in every culture. Dishonoring your parents is big and is a sin in most every culture. In societies across the world, in cultures very different from each other, there are some things that are absolutely right or wrong. Where do we get the basis for our right and wrong? If we're a random chemical process, there is no basis. It's just what's culturally acceptable. It's just what you and I decide on. But there's something in our conscience, something within all of us that says, no, this is wrong, that's right. That's because God has written certain moral truths on our hearts. God has given us knowledge of himself as evidence that there is a God. One writer, Lee Samuel, says, a lot of missionaries point out that the heathen that they go out to know more than we think. There are no atheists among the heathen tribes. There's never been discovered upon earth a tribe of people, however small or depraved, which has not believed in some kind of God or had some system of worship. The heathen found in so-called primitive tribes know they have sinned. And when a Christian comes to them and talks about sin, he finds ready acknowledgement that this is true. The heathens seem to know that their sins must be punished. They seem afraid of the punishment and afraid of death. They know that sin must be atoned for, and they seek ways of appeasing their angry deities or deity. As missionaries go out all over the world, everybody has some form of morality. Some conscious of, when I violate my morality, I have sinned against somebody or something, and it has to be atoned for. I would say that those who claim to be atheists have simply rejected the knowledge that God has planted within them. Because they believe that they should be able to understand everything, and nobody completely understands God, and so I'm just not even going to go there. I'm not going to accept it. Or maybe people will not completely reject the idea of a God, but they'll instead choose to replace God with a false God, with an idol. In verse 22 it says, although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings and birds and animals and reptiles. And instead of man accepting God's image imprinted on themselves when he made us in his own image, man has made God in his own image. Rather than saying, well, God created us in his image, I'm going to create a God in my image. And then I'm going to worship the thing that I created, which I don't understand it. Worshipping those images, worshipping nature, worshipping birds and animals and reptiles. When we worship the creation instead of the Creator, we lose sight of our own identity. We no longer realize that we are higher than the animals because we're just another one of them. And because of that, we start behaving like animals. When we look at all the depravity in the world, it's obvious where it comes from. We want a God who will not judge people. A God who accepts all that we do and thinks just like we do. If we think something's okay, then we're going to create a God that thinks that's okay. We give ourselves license to do whatever we please with no consequences. Scientists can believe in dark matter and dark energy because they don't have to be accountable to those things. They won't have to answer to a holy God if those things exist. So they make it up, they theorize, and they say, okay, I'm going to worship that because I don't have to be accountable to it. But do you know what happens when we start down this path of denying God in the face of the evidence He has given us? Our thinking becomes futile, and our hearts and our consciences become numb. And we're going to look at where that leads us to next week. What happens when we deny God? It gets ugly. But the problem isn't all the ugly things. The problem is that we deny God. That we decide there's a better way. But if we'll open our eyes to the evidence that God has given us, we'll see that believing in the existence of God is rational. It makes sense. I mean, there's a certain amount of faith that God requires of us. But it's not faith in nothing. It's not a blind faith. Just take it as it is. Mama told you so. The Bible says so. That faith is based on the evidences that we see in creation, in our own consciences. So I hope that you will know that a belief in God is rational and in line with all of the evidence that we see. And yeah, it requires a step of faith. But hopefully it'll help you to walk more confidently in your faith. Because you see the evidence. You know there's something there. Hopefully it'll help you communicate with others too, some of the evidence of God. If you're still a skeptic of God, then I hope you'll look at the evidence. Allow the evidence to just objectively come in and process it. Rather than starting with, oh, there is no God, and therefore I have to Just look at the evidence and let the evidence speak for itself. There is a God is just the beginning. God wants us to know him personally. Not just know that he exists, but to know him in relationship. He's revealed himself to us intimately in the person of Jesus Christ. You want to know what God looks like? Colossians 1. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He's the head of the body, the church. He's the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have supremacy. For God is pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile himself to all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Jesus is God in the flesh, so that we can get a picture of what God's like. And it's through our belief in Jesus and what he did to reconcile us to God by shedding his blood on the cross and rising from the dead, that we can truly live the life he's designed for us to live. A person will never believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, until they believe that there is a God who created. So it starts with that. The evidence implanted in you. From there we'll get to Jesus. I hope that encourages your faith. I know for me, just looking at this stuff, well, yeah, it's obvious. I mean, yeah, Mom and Dad taught me years ago. And I read it in a book that we've assembled called the Bible. But man, I look around and I know God's there. But more than that, the thing I cannot explain to you, I know because of my unconscious and because of things that go on in my own spirit. And I can't deny it. There's things that go on inside of me that I couldn't explain, I couldn't have done, I would never have thought of. And yet it's there, and I know it's there. If you've not yet had that opportunity, first you've got to acknowledge God as Creator. The Creator loves you so much that he sent his own Son to take on human flesh and become one of us, so that he could become mortal and go to the cross and die so your sins could be forgiven. But he didn't stay dead because he was God. So he rose from the dead, ascended into heaven, and is preparing a place for us. I hope that you're ready for that. I hope you're looking forward to that. We're going to think about God. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we would recognize that there are a lot of things that we hear in museums and in books and in TV and wherever we go, Father. We just read about how old the world is and how it happened randomly. And there's just, the evidence for it is so slim. And yet the alternative is to recognize that there is a God. And that tugs at the heart of a man who wants to rebel against you. And so I thank you that we have these opportunities to come and worship you and to declare that we do believe that you are real. That you did create and that you did send a Son to redeem us from all the sinful ways that separated us from you. Father, help us in our day-to-day, not to get caught up in the things that we see that are right before us, but to think and to consider you, the things that you want for our lives, the things that you've done for us already. In gratitude for that, help us to love others in your name. In gratitude for the things you've done for us, Father, help us to live a life that is holy and pure and blameless. And when we mess up, we thank you for Jesus, who died to make it possible for our sins to be forgiven. We ask that you would forgive us. Show us mercy and grace. And then, Father, send us back out into the fight again to tell others the good news that Jesus died for them too. Father, help us recognize that our faith is not blind. It's not based on some preacher getting up on and telling us, or mom and dad, or reading a book. There's so much evidence around us in creation, in our own consciences. I thank you for that evidence. It emboldens our faith. Thank you for that. We pray that that emboldened faith will allow us to be bold in sharing the good news. Pray in Christ's name.